someone kicked in our front door, and I had the downstairs bedroom, which is right next to the front door. And when you walk into our house, my door looks kind of like a closet, but really it's a big room. And so we have no lights on in our house. And so when they kicked in the front door, I immediately woke up. And when I woke up, I heard them run right up the stairs. So obviously they knew where they were going. And I hear them running up the stairs, and I could tell it's more than one person. And they go right to his room and kick in his room, which is directly above mine. At this point, I hear a bunch of yelling and screaming and then some moving around, and then it was quiet, and then a bunch of moving around, and then a gunshot went off. At that point, I immediately sat up in my bed and was kind of scared and didn't really know what was going on. And so there was some more rustling around, and then there was another gunshot. And then at this point, I really didn't know what to do. So I had just a pocket knife next to my bed, which isn't going to do anything against a gun. And so I grabbed that and started to get out of my bed. And then I heard them come down the stairs. And so at this point, I'm just expecting them to just break into my room and come after me, and that was going to be it. And I didn't really know what was going to happen. Well, it got really quiet. And so I kind of waited a few seconds, which in that kind of a situation, a few seconds feels like minutes. But so I waited a few seconds, and then I guess they had left. And so I walked over to my door and slowly opened it. And as I opened it, a tall figure runs right in front of me out the front door. And it was just a tall guy in a white shirt. And he just ran right out the front door.
Could you see race, hair color?
I mean, all I know is it was a guy who had black hair, and he looked like a black male with a white shirt. But honestly, it was so dark in there, I couldn't even see his face. So I wouldn't have been able to recognize who he was if I knew him or if I didn't know him anyways. And so he ran out the front door, and I remember waiting another second and opening the door and then looking down the hallway to see if anybody else was there, and then looking out the front door, which was still open and no one was there. And then I see Chris at the bottom of the stairs, and he's up against the wall. I could easily tell he was already been shot. And I was like, "Hey, Chris," and I said his name. And then I remember I took about 2 steps, and then I got shot. And so I don't know where from, I don't know which direction, but all I remember it being like a strobe light in my face, and then just gunshot noises, and then everything went black, and then I woke up on the ground. And I was on my right side of my body, and I was looking now towards my bedroom. And I remember just looking around to see if anybody was around me, and then pushing myself up with my right arm and kind of getting up, and then trying to stand up with both my arms and realizing I couldn't even feel my left arm. So I just stood up with my right arm and got on my feet and hit my door frame with my body to get into my room. At this point, I stumbled into my bedroom and grabbed my phone as I fell onto my bed and looked at my phone and dialed 911. And I don't know why, but for some reason the call got disconnected. It was only within a couple seconds. So, service drops out all the time. So maybe it just malfunctioned for a second. So immediately I dialed it again and then just held it by my side and stumbled into the door frame, walked towards the exit or the entrance of my room, stumbled in the door. And then I just remember seeing Chris as I kind of panned towards the front door to try to go out the front door. And I remember hitting the door frame in the front door and then slowly walking off my deck, and then stumbling across the street, all the way over to the street, all the way to the house across the street from me, because I knew the people that lived there. And so they are college kids too, so I figured they could possibly be awake. I mean, I didn't realize what time it was. They were asleep. And so as I got to the front door, I started banging on the door and tried to yell. And when I tried to yell, that's when I knew I'd been shot in the neck, because no sound came out of my mouth. So at that point, it was just a whisper that just came out. And so I started banging on the door for a while, and what I thought was a while, but really it was probably only a few seconds. And no one came, so I ended up turning around and kind of stumbling back into the street. And then I just remember looking right and left, and it's 3:30 in the morning and no one's there, and I just collapsed. And at that point I really did think I was gonna die, because there was really nothing no one was really there. I was really like by myself. And that was probably like the lowest point I've ever felt. Like that was pretty bad. And out of nowhere, some lady who lived a couple houses down ran out of her house and ran over to me and was screaming and yelling like, "Oh my God, you're gonna be okay. Don't worry, I'm calling the police right now, da da da." And she like held me, even though I was naked besides underwear on, covered in blood, and she was still holding me. And she thought, and apparently in the end, she thought a car window had been broken into. She had no idea what had happened. And she ran out. And then I just remember after that, really, it's just like, I remember the police showing up and they tried to ask me questions like, "Are you injured? Are you shot? And like, are you okay? Can you say anything?" And I couldn't really. I was trying to like talk to them best I could. I was like, "Come here, like, get like as close to me as you can," because I can't like use my vocal cords. I can just whisper. I could whisper, but I couldn't use my vocal cords. And they were like, "Don't worry, the ambulance is coming." And I said, "Don't worry about me. Go in the house. Like, Chris is right there. He could still be alive. Go get him." And I just remember he told me, he said, "I can't go in there because I need to stay with you because I know you're alive. I don't know if he's alive. I can't go with him yet." And so eventually, more cops came and they went, and the ambulance came, and I remember they put me on the stretcher, and I remember the ambulance car ride to the hospital. I was choking and gasping for air, and they were like, "Don't worry, you're gonna make it. Like, just keep trying. You got it. It's okay." And I remember all the way in the hospital room, and the doctor looked at me and he put a mask on me and said, "Don't worry, you made it. You can go to sleep." And I passed out. And then I woke up in the ICU, I guess like 12 hours later, whatever it was, and that was it. And I was there.
When did you find out about Chris?
So I really can't remember, because I remember waking up and my mom and dad were right next to me, and there was no one else in the room. I think there was some doctors maybe, but my mom and dad were right next to me. And I think they had to put me back under. I think after I woke up, they're like, "You need to go back to sleep." So they just hit me with some morphine, and I knocked right out. And I remember the next time I woke up, there was a team of doctors, and they told me like, what had happened, what I was dealing with. Like, you've been shot in the neck, the back, the hand, and your shoulder. And this is your injuries, and here's what's gonna happen in the next few hours, and what we're gonna do, and da da da. And they actually told me to stand. Like a few hours later, they told me to stand up and sit in a chair, because I was able to. And so I did. And then I just remember, I guess at that point, I was under like so many different drugs. I don't even know what I was thinking. I just remember I asked him. I said, I remember I finally remembered about Chris, and I asked my dad, and I said, "Hey Dad, what happened to Chris?" And then he told me, and I don't think I've ever seen my dad cry like that. That's probably like the hardest thing. One of the hardest things he's ever done was to tell me that my best friend had been shot and killed, and there was nothing I could do about it. And and that actually put me into a state where they had to hit me with morphine again, because I was just so, at that point, like my vitals are going off, the machine's like buzzing all over the place. They had to hit me again.